So in 2021, over 28,000 women over the age of 40 had babies in England and Wales.
Right. Which is a huge number.
It is. And, well, here's the fact that should really make you stop dead in your tracks. Out
Right.
of all those pregnancies, 75% were completely unplanned.
Yeah, that is just a staggering statistic. I mean, it really exposes this massive blind spot in how we understand our own bodies.
Oh, absolutely. Because, when you go through puberty, it feels like someone just flipped a switch. It's confusing, sure, but the rules are pretty clear.
Right. You get the talk in health class.
Exactly. Your body starts doing new things, and you essentially get this brand new user manual for how your reproductive system works. But then you hit your 40s,
And
and
someone just takes that user manual, tears out half the pages, and sets the rest on fire.
that is exactly what it feels like. It's essentially a second puberty, but this time you're dealing with these wild hormonal swings where all the old rules of your body just completely stop applying.
Yeah, the old rules are totally out the window.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are tackling a topic that sparks a massive amount of confusion, a lot of anxiety, and honestly, sometimes unexpected joy for you, the listener. We are asking the question, can you still get pregnant during perimenopause?
And our mission today is really to just cut through the myths and decode the actual, the biological reality of fertility during the perimenopausal transition.
Right.
Because whether you are actively trying to conceive right now or you are desperately trying not to, this deep dive is going to arm you with the science to navigate what is arguably the most unpredictable stage of reproductive life.
And to do that, we've pulled together a really robust stack of sources. We're looking at clinical guidelines from top health agencies across the UK, Australia, the US, so places like the CDC and the NHS.
Right, the big ones.
Yeah. Plus, we have actual clinical outcomes from fertility centers like the London Egg Bank.
So it's a very comprehensive look at both the biological mechanisms at play and, well, the real-world clinical guidelines that doctors actually use to treat patients during this window.
Okay, so before we can even answer how to manage your pregnancy risks or, your pregnancy goals, we really need to understand the underlying biology.
We do. We have to start there.
Because why is pregnancy even possible when your periods are actively disappearing? To understand that, I think we need to clarify the timeline because a
Okay.
lot of people conflate perimenopause and menopause into one single event.
Oh, constantly. And the language we use matters immensely here because menopause is not a phase, right? It is a single point in time.
Right.
It is officially diagnosed only after you have gone 12 consecutive months without a single period. And in both the US and Australia, the average age for that milestone is 51.
But the runway leading up to that point, that's perimenopause.
Exactly. Perimenopause usually begins much earlier, typically between the ages 40 and 44. And the time frame is incredibly varied.
It's not just a set couple of years.
No, not at all. That transition phase can last anywhere from a few short months to over a decade. And during this entire stretch, your fertility is dropping dramatically, but it does not hit zero.
Right. Let's look at the sheer numbers on this because it really puts the biological ticking clock into perspective. So when you are born, you have roughly 1 to 2 million eggs.
Right.
By the time you are 30, only 12% of those eggs remain, which is already a huge drop.
It is.
And then by age 37, you're down to about 25,000. And by age 40, just 3% of your original egg supply is left.
Just 3%. And that drop in quantity mirrors the drop in your statistical chances of getting pregnant.
Right. The real world odds.
Exactly. To translate those follicle counts, a 30-year-old has about a 75% chance of conceiving within a year of trying. By age 40, that drops to a 44% chance within a year.
Wow.
And if you look at it month by month, a 40-year-old has less than a 5% chance of conceiving per menstrual cycle.
3% of the eggs left and less than a 5% chance of getting pregnant a month. I mean, it is so easy to see why someone might look at those numbers, look at their skipping periods, and just think, okay, the factory is officially closed.
Totally understandable. But a 5% chance is still a chance. The factory isn't closed. The foreman has just completely lost the schedule.
That's a great way to put it.
Because during perimenopause, your hormones are not just smoothly and quietly declining, they're fluctuating wildly.
Right, it's chaotic.
Very. Your ovaries are becoming resistant, so your brain actually starts shouting louder. It sends these massive surges of hormones to try and force an egg out. And because of this chaotic communication, you might actually ovulate multiple times in a very short span,
Hmm.
or, not at all for months.
Okay, let's try an analogy to visualize that. So think of your ovaries during your 20s and 30s like a brand new light bulb. It shines consistently, right? But then think of perimenopause not as a dimmer switch smoothly turn the lights down, but as a failing light bulb.
Ooh, yes.
It flickers, it dims, it goes completely dark for a minute, and then bam, a massive surge of electricity hits and it flashes brighter than ever.
That is exactly it.
And that biological flicker is exactly why an egg can still drop when you least expect it.
That flickering is the perfect way to understand the mechanism. And it's that precise biological flickering that leads to the staggering real-world consequences we highlight at the very top of the show.
Right, the surprise pregnancies. Because of that unpredictable light bulb, women are getting pregnant when they thought their reproductive years were completely in the rearview mirror.
And there is a really memorable story in our sources that captures this perfectly.
Oh, the Vicky Jenkins story.
Yes. So Vicky is 45, and she starts experiencing what everyone would assume are textbook signs of menopause.
Yeah, she's got hot flashes, she's dealing with severe mood swings.
And crucially, she is missing her periods.
Right, so she thinks, here it is, the transition.
Exactly. Only later does she discover she wasn't just in perimenopause. She was actually 11 weeks pregnant.
11 weeks.
Yeah. And when you look at the biology, it makes perfect sense why Vicky and literally thousands of other women miss the signs. The symptoms of perimenopause and the symptoms of early pregnancy are almost identical.
It's basically a Venn diagram that is just a single overlapping circle.
It really is. I mean, missed periods, deep fatigue, severe mood swings, sudden weight fluctuations, breast tenderness, even hot flashes.
Oh, right, like Drew Barrymore recently.
Yes. We all saw Drew Barrymore experience her first hot flash on live TV, which is, a classic perimenopausal moment. But hot flashes can also happen in early pregnancy due to the massive, rapid shifts in estrogen and progesterone. The symptoms literally belong to both camps.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm having a little trouble buying this.
Okay, why?
Well, I understand the symptoms overlap, sure, but for our entire adult lives, if we miss a period, our brain is hardwired to immediately panic and go buy a pregnancy test.
Right.
So how are thousands of women just ignoring that deeply ingrained instinct?
It's a fair question. In your 20s and 30s, that instinct is sharp. But perimenopause actually conditions you to ignore it over time.
Oh, I see.
Think about it. For months or even years, your cycles have been erratic. You've meant a period, you panicked, you took a test, it was negative, and you realized it was just the perimenopause flickering.
Right, the false alarms.
Exactly. You do that 3 or 4 times, and eventually you stop testing. Your brain creates a blind spot because you expect the missed periods. You just become conditioned to the irregularity.
Okay, wow, that makes complete sense. It's a total boy who cried wolf situation.
Exactly.
So, biologically speaking, how is a person supposed to tell the difference without just buying stock in pharmacy pregnancy tests?
Well, you really have to look at the clinical pattern of the symptoms. Pregnancy symptoms generally intensify week by week.
Okay.
And this happens because the hormone HCG, which is the specific chemical that pregnancy tests measure, is actively building up and doubling in your system. So the nausea gets worse, the fatigue gets heavier.
Whereas perimenopause symptoms don't do that.
Right. Perimenopause symptoms tend to fluctuate over months. You might have a terrible month of hot flashes, followed by 2 months of feeling totally fine. But ultimately, the clinical advice is absolute. If you are sexually active and you miss a period, a pregnancy test is the only definitive way to rule it out.
Right. So if our bodies are essentially crying wolf for years, conditioning us to ignore missed periods, how do we actively prevent pregnancy when the standard warning sign, like a late period, is completely useless?
It's tough.
I mean, the rules of the game have to change entirely.
They do, and the medical guidelines on this are very strict.
Huh.
You cannot just throw out your birth control the minute your periods get spotty.
Good to know.
The official rule from health organizations is this. If you are under the age of 50, you must continue using contraception for 2 full years after your last period.
2 whole years of waiting.
Yes, 2 years. Because the chances of an egg randomly dropping after a long dormant stretch are much higher in your 40s.
Okay.
Now, if you are over the age of 50, you only need to continue using contraception for 1 year after your final period. And by the age of 55, natural conception is considered exceptionally rare. So clinical guidelines generally agree that contraception can be safely stopped regardless of your bleeding patterns.
Okay, so what are the recommended methods during this window? Because clearly, cycle tracking apps aren't going to cut it anymore.
Definitely not. The gold standard for this age group are long-acting reversible contraceptives, or LARCs, specifically IUDs.
Oh,
Yeah. If you get a copper IUD inserted at age 40 or older, medical guidelines say it can be safely left in place until you reach menopause.
oh, that's convenient.
Very. And the hormonal IUD, specifically the 52 milligram dose like Mirena, is highly recommended. If that's inserted at age 45 or older, it can safely stay in until age 55.
And doesn't the hormonal IUD do double duty for a lot of perimenopause symptoms anyway?
It does, which is why doctors love it. It actively manages the heavy, erratic menstrual bleeding that plagues so many women during this transition.
Plus, if you end up needing hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for your hot flashes or mood changes, you need something to protect your uterine lining from thickening too much. And that specific IUD provides the essential endometrial protection you need while you're taking systemic estrogen.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about the methods people might already be on? Like the pill or the shot. Do you just stay on those?
Well, the guidelines strongly warn against combined hormonal contraceptives. That's the traditional pill containing both estrogen and progestin for women over 50.
Why is that?
Because as we age, our risk of vascular issues, like blood clots and stroke, naturally increases. And the synthetic estrogen in the combined pill is processed through the liver, which alters clotting factors in your blood, heavily amplifying that cardiovascular risk.
Got it. Blood clots are a definite no. And what about the shot?
The progestogen-only injection, often known as the depot shot, should also generally be stopped at age 50, but for a totally different reason.
Estrogen acts like the glue that holds calcium in your bones. The depot shot works by suppressing your natural estrogen levels. So if you stay on it into your 50s, you are entering menopause with already weakened bones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is a massive risk factor for osteoporosis.
Okay, so I have a logistical question here.
Sure.
If the progestogen-only methods or the hormonal IUD frequently stop your bleeding entirely, how do women actually know they've hit that 1 year or 2 year menopause milestone? Like, you have no period to measure from.
It is notoriously difficult. Honestly, it's one of the biggest frustrations patients bring to their doctors.
I can imagine.
Doctors can use a blood test to measure FSH, which is follicle-stimulating hormone. Generally, though, FSH blood tests are discouraged during perimenopause because your hormones are fluctuating wildly. I mean, a test on Tuesday might look totally different than a test on Thursday.
Right, because of the flickering.
Exactly. However, if a woman is over 50, has no periods, and is using a progestogen-only method, doctors can do serial FSH tests.
Serial meaning multiple.
Right, they test multiple times over a set period to see if the levels stay consistently highly elevated. And if they do, that strongly indicates menopause and helps them decide when it's finally safe to stop the birth control.
And what if you're on the combined pill?
Blood tests are entirely useless for checking your menopausal status.
Seriously?
Yeah, totally useless. The bleeding you experience on the combined pill isn't even a real period. It's a withdrawal bleed caused by taking the placebo pills for a week. And the synthetic hormones in the pill completely suppress your natural FSH levels.
Oh.
So you have fake periods and masked blood work. You literally have no way of knowing if your natural factory has shut down until you actually stop taking the pill.
Man, that is so tricky. So if the pill is creating fake periods and masking our natural signals, and the IUD is stopping bleeding entirely, how do women who actually want to get pregnant during this window even know where they stand?
That's a whole different ballgame.
We really need to look at the realities and clinical options for intentional pregnancy during perimenopause.
Absolutely. If you are actively trying to conceive, the first thing to understand is that the clinical risks do elevate significantly.
For the mother or the baby?
Both, actually. For the mother, pregnancies in this age bracket see higher rates of gestational diabetes and high blood pressure, which can, lead to preeclampsia.
Right.
The vascular system is just under immense strain, which also leads to a higher risk of placental abruption and needing a C-section.
Okay, so the mother's body is under immense strain. But earlier we talked about how a 42-year-old's eggs are mostly down to that last 3%. Does that mean the baby is absorbing the brunt of this risk because of the egg quality?
Unfortunately, yes.
Ah.
Egg quality is the primary limiting factor here. By age 42, up to 80% of a woman's remaining eggs have chromosomal abnormalities.
80%. That is brutal.
It is. But this is simply a biological reality of aging cells. The mechanisms that divide DNA inside the egg just become less efficient over time. And because of this, the risks to the baby include a much higher chance of miscarriage, premature birth, and conditions like Down syndrome.
Meaning that a perimenopausal pregnancy is a highly medicalized pregnancy.
Oh, extremely. We are talking very early viability scans, specialized genetic blood tests to check those chromosomes, and often the mother is put on daily low-dose aspirin to help stave off the vascular risks of preeclampsia.
So getting there in the first place, you hear a lot about fertility testing. People think, oh, I'll just get my levels checked and do IVF. But the sources are pretty clear that the testing has severe limitations.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot about AMH, or anti-Müllerian hormone testing.
Right, the egg timer test.
Exactly. This test can give a doctor a snapshot of your ovarian reserve. Basically, it's a rough estimate of the quantity of eggs left in the vault. But here is the critical limitation. AMH cannot test for quality.
Ah, I see.
It cannot guarantee whether you will or will not get pregnant. You can have great AMH levels but still struggle to conceive because the eggs are chromosomally abnormal, or you can have terrible AMH levels and get pregnant naturally because you released one healthy egg.
So, if a woman decides to pursue fertility treatments, knowing all this, what do the success rates actually look like in this specific window?
Well, the data is sobering. If a woman attempts traditional IVF using her own eggs between the ages of 43 and 50, the success rate drops to just 5%.
5%. Given the massive physical and financial toll of IVF, those are incredibly tough odds.
They are. However, the data dramatically shifts when you look at donor eggs.
Okay.
The London Egg Bank reports that from a single cohort of donated eggs, the cumulative pregnancy rate after 2 embryo transfers jumps to 70%.
From 5% to 70%, that's a huge jump.
It really is.
Let's use an analogy to break down exactly why that difference is so vast, because it's not about the soil, right? It's about the seed.
Okay.
Trying IVF with your own eggs in your late 40s is basically like planting a 10-year-old expired seed in a garden. The soil is great, you're watering it, giving it sunlight, but the seed just doesn't have the biological vigor to sprout. But using a donor egg is simply swapping in a fresh seed. Your uterus is still the perfect garden.
That is exactly right. The uterus remains remarkably capable of carrying a healthy pregnancy well into perimenopause and beyond. Its biological age matters far less than the biological age of the egg itself.
That's fascinating.
A younger donor egg fundamentally bypasses the chromosomal issues, which just shifts the odds completely.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? If we synthesize everything from these medical guidelines and fertility clinics, the core takeaway is really this. Perimenopause is a transition, not a hard stop.
Yes.
It is a flickering light bulb. Your fertility flickers unpredictably before it finally fades.
And whether you are rigorously tracking your basal body temperature and ovulation strips to have a baby, or you are strictly relying on a 52 milligram IUD to avoid one, understanding that your ovaries are still, well, in the game is crucial.
Right.
The medical consensus is absolute here. You are biologically capable of conception until 12 consecutive months after your final period.
Oh, and knowing that empowers you. It empowers you to not just dismiss a missed period just because you're 46. It arms you with the facts to advocate for your own reproductive health, no matter which side of the fertility coin you are currently on.
Absolutely. And, before we wrap up, if we connect this biological reality to the broader human picture, there is a really fascinating concept to leave you with today.
Oh, I love this part.
We didn't explicitly cover it in our discussion of the clinical data, but it builds directly on this biology of the ticking clock. It's called the grandmother hypothesis.
Okay, so looking at the evolutionary side of things, what does the hypothesis say?
Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, human beings are incredibly unique. We are one of the very few species on Earth where females routinely live for decades beyond their reproductive capacity.
Right.
Think about it. Why did biology design us to lose our fertility around 50, but design our bodies to live to 85? Why build in a hard biological shutoff valve?
Yeah, if the whole point of evolutionary biology is to pass on genes, why hit the brakes when there are still 30 years left on the clock? It seems counterintuitive.
It does. But evolutionary anthropologists suggest it was actually a brilliant survival strategy.
How so?
Well, in early hunter-gatherer societies, infants required an immense amount of caloric energy and care to survive. By turning off fertility in older women, those women could shift their immense energy and resources away from the life-threatening risks of having their own babies.
Oh, I see.
Instead, they could invest that energy into ensuring the survival of their grandchildren. They could forage for food when younger mothers were nursing, they could protect the young, and they could share vital generational knowledge. Like where to find water during a drought.
So losing your fertility wasn't a biological failure. It was basically a community upgrade.
Exactly. It ensured the survival of the human species. The extra calories and care provided by grandmothers are a huge part of why human populations thrived. So as you navigate the frustrating, unpredictable, symptom-heavy end of your fertility, consider that this biological shutoff valve, this flickering light bulb we've been talking about, might actually be humanity's evolutionary superpower.
What a profound way to look at it. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly.
So as you find yourself navigating this second puberty, trying to write a brand new user manual for a body that seems to be making up the rules as it goes, remember this. The flickering is normal, the transition is natural, and you have the science to take control of it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.